Okay, so I'm getting really annoyed with myself because I keep making these really super long video reviews and I can't figure out how or why they're ending up so long. I mean, I don't know what I'm doing differently. Maybe you guys can tell me. Anyways, yes, I've made another two-part video review. The first video will be detailing the modes, the transformations, the gimmicks, blah 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 blah. The second video will be the conclusions and my 2 cents. Make sure that you watch both videos because they are meant to be watched together. There is a feeling that is universally known. You're in an argument with someone. Intense, passionate, you're both getting red-faced, you're both yelling, the other person is just being pig-headed and stupid, and you just know that your position is absolutely infallible. You are right and there's nothing they can say or do to change your mind about it. And then all of a sudden comes that terrible, awful, horrible, no good, very bad feeling in the pit of your stomach when you realize, oh shit, I'm wrong. And then just to rub salt in the wounds, you have to go through the agonizing, humiliating process of telling the other person that they're right and you're wrong. Doesn't matter when, doesn't matter where, it's happened. Well, for the last 3 months now, I've more or less had that same feeling running through the back of my head. So, I hope you'll understand when I say that I feel that I owe an apology to some people, and there's actually quite a few of them, but I just don't know how to word it, or even if there should be an apology in there. After all, it was just my 2 cents on the matter. I should at least apologize for the tone that I had with some people. I was rather forceful and belligerent, I suppose. At least that I can articulate and put into words and genuinely say, I'm sorry for being so short. So I thought that would be a good way to set the tone for the commentary here. Now, in the 7.5 years that I've been volunteering for CollectionDX.com, and in the 4 years since I've started shooting video reviews for said CollectionDX.com, I have never, ever, ever encountered anything quite like this before. This toy came out in the 3rd quarter of 2009, and almost immediately there followed a wave of requests for, Ava, would you please review the DX Daikai-Oh? This was both on CDX and the YouTube channel. And I answered with a rather resounding no. I am not going to review the DX Daikai-Oh. I don't like the shapes, I don't like the colors, I don't like the features, I don't like the transformation, on and on and on, I said. And that was perhaps my biggest mistake in this whole debacle. In 2008, when I said I was going to be reviewing the DX Jum Whale set, it was about, 2 months, where people were asking, Ava, are you going to review Jum Whale? Jum Whale is really neat. Ava, have you gotten Jum Whale yet? Unlike Jum Whale, I did not like the DX Daikai-Oh. And for almost a solid 2 years, I have heard nothing but, Ava, you have got to get the DX Daikai-Oh. Ava, the Daikai-Oh is one of the most amazing Super Sentai mecha ever. Ava, when are you going to be getting the Daikai-Oh? Ava, when are you going to be... It has been nothing but this, following me practically across the entire internets for the better part of 2 years. This mecha and this issue has followed me around YouTube all over the place. Anywhere where my reputation as a toy reviewer precedes me, people are asking me if I'm going to review this thing, okay? There are even places off of CollectionDX.com and off of YouTube where people are asking me this thing. It's haunting every one of my waking steps, okay? It's unlike anything I've ever seen before, okay? It's absolutely crazy. As a matter of fact, it was that peer pressure, that fan pressure, which finally convinced me to take a second look and maybe I should review it, even though it cost me more than $100 just to buy it. Don't even include the shipping and handling in there. This thing is expensive in the aftermarket. And while I'm thinking about it, I would like to pass a special shout out and thank you out to my boss, Josh B., who is the CDX webmaster and administrator and creator, who helped me in acquiring this rather expensive and rather hard to find toy. So Josh, thank you very much for your help on that. Skipping past a lot of unnecessary self-analysis, I will say that that fan pressure eventually led me to taking a second look at the DX Daikai-Oh. So in many ways, both YouTubers and CDXers are responsible for me ending up with this toy. So I suppose I have you to thank for it, for clearing my head and slapping me silly for the last 2 years. So, with that rather large and unnecessary introduction taken care of, how's about I start getting into my 2 cents about this toy, huh? I mentioned it a little earlier, but I want to re-emphasize it here. Unlike the Kabuto, Kajiki, Tora, and Ika origami, the Ebi origami is able to get away with just having the appearance of an origami. If you look at those 4 accessory origami, yeah, there's a lot of parts forming involved, and they don't really look all that great. And function-wise, they're not that great, despite having the hidden desk gimmick in them, and being able to combine into both the Dai Tenku and the Ika Tenku Buster. However, unlike the previous 4 accessory origami, the Ebi origami contains a lot more visual appearance of folding paper, even if it doesn't transform like folding paper like the origami from the DX Shinken-Oh do. This is easily noticeable in the tail, the fins, the tail, certainly the claws, and most definitely in the face and the antenna here. I mean, this definitely looks like folded paper that's been molded into plastic. It's very, very nice, very clean. Sure, it may not be 100% lobster-like, but on the other hand, origami does not always have to look 100% lifelike. Where it doesn't get away with it quite so well would be the thickness of the torso, the top here, and, this huge thing on the underneath here. By the way, I discovered this pose while I was shooting this video, and I'm kind of starting to like it. So, yeah. Get it in frame. There you go. And that also goes for the lobster sword's antenna up here, and also the lobster legs, which look really nice. Not so sure about the red along those front 2 legs, but that's a minor pick. The light and sound feature is actually quite generous for a single mode. 4 separate sounds for just the animal mode. That's pretty nice. And there's 2 different versions of each sound. Yeah, I wish there had been a 3rd different sound altogether, but I'll leave that alone. That's pretty sufficient. Though I wish that there had been ratcheting joints here so that you could twist the arms in this fashion, have the claws point like they do in the show. Yeah, but I can understand why it is they didn't do it. I mean, these would have to be pretty strong joints here just in order to allow these to twist and to have the strength to hold these. So, as you may have noticed a little earlier, I've actually got the claw set off to the side a little bit as opposed to locking it in position like that. So, oh yeah, and then we also have the claw articulation right there. This is a terrible angle, which is pretty nice. And then kind of sort of articulation in the legs. Kind of sort of. And once again, I do actually like the spinning halo hidden disc, whatever that attack is called. But unlike what I demonstrated earlier, if you spin it fast enough, like you would try to recreate it in the show, the hidden discs will definitely pop up. So I do wish that you've been able to close up the hand, close up the claw like that, in order to make it a more secure connection. I mean, they did it with all the other accessory origami. I don't see why they couldn't have done it here, because in the show, these close up when the discs are spinning. So it's a minor discrepancy there. But, hey, at least they've got the feature in there, and I thought it was a pretty neat little feature. And I also chuckled when I discovered that the tail could shift side to side slightly because of that transformation joint. That was cute, I thought. In fact, the only complaint that I really have with the Ebi Origami mode, aside from not having the hidden discs secured very well in there, seems to be the complaint that everybody else has, and that is that it does not balance very well upright like this. Believe it or not, the surface is actually tilted this way a little bit, so it's a little prejudiced. But yeah, it doesn't sit very well. I don't know where I saw it on YouTube, and my eyes bugged out of my skull when I saw this. I don't know where I saw it, but supposedly you can take the top part of the Daikaishinken-Oh's head off, the helmet, this black piece here. The split is in the right place, but when I unscrewed it, I took these 2 screws out, which, proceed at your own risk. No, it was very much solid on there, but I swear I saw somebody take this off of the toy without unscrewing it or modifying it in any way like that. So if you'd been able to remove that and maybe stick it somewhere else in here to make it a little more solid, that would have been nice. but unfortunately, that did not happen. And like I said, that's a universal complaint. That's something that everybody complains about, so I'm just adding my voice to that. Oh yeah, and the Ebi Origami is also 1/1 scale with real lobsters. So, yeah, it gets a pass in my book. The DX Daikai-Oh is rather wide, and yeah, unfortunately it does have a slightly small footprint. You know, unusually small, especially for a Super Sentai Robo, for one certainly of this size. So it does have a tendency to fall backwards really easily, but standing by itself, it's not too bad. So you lean it forward and give it time, yeah, it will tip over. But otherwise, removing the weapons or anything like that doesn't really change much as far as how back heavy it is. On that note, one of the things I really like about the Daikai-Oh, and actually one of the things that I originally liked in 2009, was the lobster leg cape. That's just so neat. It's just got this kind of feathered design that I really, really like. And it worked, I mean, when you do it just like this, it's okay. But when you put the lobster swords back on, it just helps it out so much and makes it stand out a lot better when you see it from the front. Well, kind of. The camera kind of distorts it, but when you see it in person, it works. What are these things for? Seriously, I have no idea. There's a little pegs in there. What is that? That's the only thing I have any real serious questions about. This is tilted at a weird angle anyway, so that's why it tips over so easily. Something else that I not necessarily overlooked, but that I actually disliked in 2009 was how pointy it is in all the right places. The armor that is on it in all these different places. I can only imagine an Ayakashi would have a very difficult time trying to grab and hang on to this thing. You know, that might actually be a rather difficult thing for it to do. And then you turn around and you've got these giant monster claws on the front, which, you know, how often do Super Sentai Mecha have such a wide variety of weapons on them? You know, that's actually pretty good. Beyond the standard sword, shield, and maybe an internally built blaster conveniently hiding out somewhere. By the way, one of the few things I've noticed about the Daikai-Oh is how small those arms look compared to... Wow, my skin is really pale when I look at it in the camera. Anyway, compared to the... Anyways, look how small those arms are compared to the legs or the rest of it. It's especially noticeable in Daikaishinken, but I'll get to that later on. Maybe. But anyways, yeah, those arms are really small, and it's surprising how much bulk the lobster claws add to the shoulders in particular. So that's something interesting. It's also really nice that each of the modes has at least one sound effect to itself. Although with Nishi it has two sound effects, even though they sound the same, one's just a repeat of the other. Yeah, okay, that works. Though why it is that Ika Daikai-Oh has three different sound effects... and why it is that each one of those sound effects is different, I can't quite figure out. It's like there's a programming glitch somewhere in there. Like, each of those should have been the hold down the button and it'll make its own special attack sound effect in each of the other modes. It should have been like that, but strangely they're all in Daikai-Oh Kita mode. I don't quite get that one. I won't get into too much detail in the video review because I know I'm starting to run out of time here, and you can also look at my text review on CollectionDX.com, which often has things which I don't talk about in the video review. When asked which of the four Daikai-Oh modes is my favorite, I would have to say that Daikai-Oh Kita is by far my least favorite. Why? Well, what the hell is this thing supposed to be? B, this chest armor looks really bad, although I understand what they were trying to do with it. C, it has bunny ears. Why, I don't know. D, it's got all these really interesting weapons and stuff happening back here, which don't really help it any. And E, that face really, really freaks me out. And I don't quite know what that face is supposed to represent anyways. As opposed to my favorite of the four modes, Daikai-Oh Nishi, which is actually quite clear about what its face is supposed to represent. You see, each of the four faces that Daikai-Oh has is supposed to represent not only the cardinal direction that it has, north, south, east, west, but it also represents the weapon that it's supposed to have. For example, with Nishi, it has the fan, the war fan here on its face, as opposed to gotta put the bunny ears back up, of course. Which, this one, I suppose it's supposed to have the lobster swords in there, but I can't see them. I really can't. I don't know what that one is supposed to represent. And then there's this one. Which obviously has the really, really large lobster claws on either side. So, you know, that one makes sense. That one doesn't. Might be better if I just turn that off. And this one also makes sense. But with Kita, what's that supposed to be? I have no idea. But yeah, Nishi is my favorite of the four because it's the most Great Sea kingly of the four. This is the one that works best for me. And I go a little bit into that in the text review over on CollectionDX.com. Unless I am mistaken, these are the two largest DX-sized Mega Class combos in Super Sentai history. Or Power Rangers, if you must. Oh, and Daikaishinken wins by a hair. See, I told you it was big, didn't I? Yep, I knew it. I told you it was big. And also by part count. Bow down before the might of your new king. In regards to the Ika Tenku Buster, I suppose I should be grateful for one thing, and that is that they didn't try to incorporate all 10 origami into one combined form. Yeah, what the hell is this thing? I don't know. It doesn't really look like a cannon in the slightest. And you can have that, spirit projection attack as much as you want to, but at the end of the day, where are the cannon barrels? Where are the emitter arrays? You know, there's just nothing here. But I already complained about that in the Ika Origami's review, so I won't rehash that. But I can only imagine the difficulty, not so much in this day and age, of trying to incorporate 10 origami into this combination. I mean, it would have ended up looking something like the Tenku Shinken-Oh with the Daitenku sitting on the back and then the Ika Origami kind of scrambling around. Oh, where am I going to go? Where am I going to go? Where am I going to go? So I'm kind of glad they didn't go that way. I wouldn't have been too worried if it had ended up looking something like this, but it would have been an absolute disaster if it had ended up looking like this. So I suppose I should be thankful for small mercies. Okay, look, I can understand that it might be a little difficult to come up with original designs when your gimmick is swapping giant battle helmets. I mean, they've already done it 1, 2, 3, 4 times, so having to come up with something for a super class combination, probably not that easy. But regardless of that, I do have to wonder, what is that? Seriously, what is this thing? I have no idea what that is. It looks good as the lobster leg wings on the back of Daikai-Oh. That's fine. That actually looks neat. But what is that thing? Seriously. Careful, don't put pressure there. If I could take these things off, you know, just pop them on and off as part of the transformation process, yes, absolutely I would. Unfortunately, they've got those little metal rods going through them during the manufacturing process, so... But my God, is that thing ever distracting. I mean, what the hell is that? And, you know, it doesn't really look all that great from the side either. It gives it more of an insect look than it does a... Well, technically lobsters are underwater insects, albeit giant ones, but still, I mean, what... That's probably my biggest complaint with this whole combination. I mean, right there. That's the biggest problem I've got with it. Not even the fact that the Saru and Kame origami are relegated to just holding the lobster swords, and even then, you know, they don't do anything once the swords are removed. I'm trying to do this gracefully and failing miserably. Don't drop it. Okay, that's good. Dropping it would be bad and make me look like an idiot. Saru, Kame origami, useless right here. At least the Shishi origami is doing something. It holds together the lower torso and it provides an attachment point for the legs. I mean, that makes sense. But Saru and Kame? Saru and Kame. It's been 2 years. I'm starting to forget. The Saru and Kame origami. Yeah, that's just. I don't know what that is. Demoralizing, maybe. I suppose if they try to put them like up here and like have these things make the helmet or something. Attach them to the sides here. Make them the arms, and then have the Daikaio's arms wrap around them. That would be interesting. That'd be really interesting, actually. Speaking of which, I mentioned it earlier. Enough of that thing. That if you take the claws off, let's see, I should have taken this off. If you remove the claws, the arms of Daikaishinken look really tiny. These can pop off, by the way, just in case you're wondering. Those arms look really, really tiny compared to the rest. Let's see. I'm going to match it up with the hip. You see the difference there? There's a huge difference, and they're so thin and so narrow. Yeah, it's kind of a necessity that the lobster claws are up there. And I'm going to put this here so it gets in my way. And there's something else I wanted to bring up. And that is, why does this turn? Seriously, it doesn't do it in the show. Now, I can understand the difficulty of having to find some way of anchoring both this thing and the Ebi Origami's tentacles onto the Daikaio's chest. That might be a problem. And seriously, this is probably the best thing that they could have come up with, just having it snap on there. If it had been just a simple peg, or if it had a bunch of little tabs and pegs around the outside, it might have ruined the effect. But, so, that makes sense. But why does it turn? If it was part of the transformation process, something getting locked into place by twisting it, okay, but why does it turn? I don't get that. And you know what? The war fan here, this just does the snapping part. This little nub right here, this is the part that does the actual ratcheting. Why does that ratchet? I don't get it. That's a little strange. Oh yeah, and there's, in addition to the Saru and Kame, that's some pretty bad kibble sitting back there. I wouldn't really call, let me turn the camera, I wouldn't really call this stuff up here kibble, even though I understand the need for it to be there and I don't really like it. That kind of makes sense to have that up there. Kind of. But aside from that, and the twisting thing, and the Saru and the Kame, and this thing back here, Daikaishinken, not bad. While the Shinken-Oh had more of that folded paper look, a humanoid combination that has folded paper to create its shape, which was very excellent, which I still like, even 2.5 years after its original release. The Daikaishinken ends up just dissing that completely and just adding whatever the hell it wants to on here. And it doesn't make, and it gives it more of the samurai armor look than the Shinken-Oh did. Or even the Daigoyo for that matter. Oh yeah, that reminds me, I'm just going to get rid of these things so I don't have to deal with them the rest of the match. Now, ordinarily, I don't have to bring this up with a Super Sentai toy release that comes from Bandai of Japan, okay? Usually this is not something I have to bring up because it's just so well done year after year after year after year after year that I don't have to worry about it. No point in bringing it up because the standard is so good, why bother? If we're talking one of those Power Ranger Megazord remakes from Bandai America, usually it is something I have to bring up, but generally speaking, with Super Sentai toys specifically, don't have to worry about it. There's one thing about the combining process that concerns me. The tabs that I was talking about earlier, it's a reasonable enough combination, whatever it is, and they peg until the hole's right here. I made a big point of it earlier. The thing that bothers me, though, is that those tabs, those holes, are the only things holding these two rather significant sections together. And as a result of that, I don't know if I'm going to be able to just take this off. Ah, yes, you can take the arms off. And as a result of that, careful, it's unstable. You can actually tilt that back and forth. Now, right now, this is a relatively new toy because I got it MISB. But over time, no doubt, those pegs, on those transparent red pegs on the inside of the Daikaio's torso, those are going to wear out over time, and things might not fit together quite as well. This will take years, of course. But right now, it's entirely possible for this to pop off right now, for it to pop off reasonably well. So I would suggest not picking it up like this, not grabbing onto it just from the torso. You know, pick it up from hanging onto the shishi origami. Hang onto it from the back here, hang onto it from the legs. Just make certain that you have a hold somewhere of the shishi origami on down, because hanging onto the top, you're likely to either pop the head off, which 4 connection points are there. That's crazy. And it would have been nice if maybe somewhere in this kibble there had been some sort of a lever that had flipped down and either attached somehow to, had somehow attached to the shishi origami in this hole here where the head is. Because the head does have to be folded in order to make room for all this kibble, ironically. But of course, you know, having the head show up in this combination would be rather unusual. Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, it would have been nice if this kibble had actually been able to do something and help hang on to the lower half. So I wouldn't worry too much about it right away, but it is going to be something to be worried about in the years to come. So just know that that's a problem. And that's a tolerances issue. That, like I said, that's something I don't have to talk about with Super Sentai DX toys, because, well, the standards at Bandai Japan are usually so good as far as quality control for things like that, I don't have to bring it up. Ah, yeah, and there's one final thing which I actually forgot to bring up earlier. Ironically, I would remember it at the very end of the video review. With the sound effects, I complained earlier that the DX Daikai-Oh doesn't have any sound effects to its own. Well, unfortunately, I forgot to mention this part. If you hold down the button, in any of the 4 Daikai-Oh modes, each of the 4 cardinal modes, you will get that sound effect. Now, individually, if you just press it and let go real quickly, you'll get the generic sound effect that comes with each of the 4 modes, depending on which head you have in position. But if you hold it down, you get that sound effect. And the reason for that is that sound effect is actually used for the Daitenku Buster and its finishing attack. So, you know, you raise the arms up, that's all well and good, but how are you going to get to that thing, that button in there? Oops, forgot to hold it down. So, that is what that is for. I wasn't planning on saving that for the end of the video review, but that's just how it turned out, I guess. And so, this is Ava Unit 4A for CollectionDX.com, signing off.
See